Today we're talking about the board game Red Cathedral
and the Contractors expansion,
and we're giving you 5 reasons why you want to play.
I'm Libby and this is Julian. We are BoxedMeeples and you can find us on Instagram, on YouTube and on Twitter.
We've recently fallen in love with the game Red Cathedral by Devere Games, but what is it all about? The Red Cathedral is a player resource management rondel economics game that's set in the mid-16th century. Ivan the Terrible has ordered the construction of St. Basil's Cathedral to commemorate his military victories. You play as an architecture team, contributing to the construction of the cathedral. A score track runs around the board, but how quickly you advance along it depends on what types of points you earn. Recognition points move you slowly along it, but are easier to get. However, initially at least, prestige points leap you ahead, but they're harder to get. At the end of the game, your architectural team want to have more points than any other team, and to do that, you need to contribute most to the collective construction of the glorious landmark. Plans for construction of the Red Cathedral itself are made up of bases, which have doors, the middle sections, which have windows, and domes, which are adorned with crosses. On the front of the cathedral cards, you have the cost for construction, how much rubles you'll get for building it, and how much recognition you'll get for that building section. On each turn, you can take one of 3 actions. You can commit to building sections of the cathedral by bagsying it with a flag. Alternatively, if you already have an assigned cathedral section, you can deliver up to 3 resources which you'll use to build or decorate it. When you have all the resources delivered, you can complete your tower section, gain the recognition and the rubles, and punish any architects working on unfinished sections below. If instead you choose to decorate, you can choose to lavish ornamentation onto anyone's completed constructions, increasing your contribution score to a finished tower and gaining vital prestige points if you're able to include gemstones. Getting the material you need to complete construction is a third available action, and it uses the rondel in the middle of the board. You pick a dice and then move it around the marker equal to the number shown on the dice. If it's your player colour or the white dice, you can even spend money to move it further. Once placed, you perform the market action the dice has landed on. This could be obtaining resources, and you get the same amount as the number of dice that are already in that section. Provided, of course, you can fit it into your inventory, which is limited. You can then perform the action on the influence card in the quadrant that you've just moved into. Once a player has completed construction of their 6th cathedral card, they trigger the final round. Players gain prestige for the amount they contributed to each tower. The total value is calculated based on its size and the amount of ornamentation. Then the players would count their presence on the tower. The one who did the most will get the full value of the tower in prestige points, while the second and third will get a proportion of the total. After all players have calculated their final points, the one with the highest total is considered to be the most successful architectural team and therefore win the game of Red Cathedral.
I work for Cosmos Games in the UK who also distribute for Devere. So that's how I've managed to get hold of Contractors, which is due to release on GenCon this year. We think this adds quite a bit to the game, so we thought we'd talk about that, but this isn't a paid for review. This expansion adds specialists and craftsmen to ensure that the construction of St. Basil's Cathedral is worthy of the Tsar. The main module is the Contractors, which adds a Grand Duchy of Moscow board that will sit alongside the board from the base game. This board has players visit Moscow and the surrounding cities in order to hire these specialists. To do this, a 4th action has been added into the game, which is called hiring. There are also 10 new guilds for use on the rondel when you take the influence actions. Most of these guilds can be added into the base game to add variety, but there are a few which require the game to have the Grand Duchy of Moscow board in play.
Now clearly, Contractors adds quite a lot to the Red Cathedral base game, but what about 5 reasons why you should be playing this game?
One thing we really like about this is the black dice. So this dice is used for the specialists. So when you visit the Grand Duchy board of Moscow, you'll be taking off an action, which when you use the black dice will give you this extra action to be able to do. But not only that, having that extra dice on the rondel really changes things up a bit, especially because you're allowed to manipulate it in the same way that you can your player dice or the white dice. So you can pay the extra coin, take it a little bit further. You've got one more dice on the board with the potential of having multiple dice in the same area, you can potentially get much more for your move.
The basic addition of just having one more dice on the board speeds up how quickly you're going to get resources.
And I think because it's speeding things up in terms of the resources, that's balanced out in terms of the gameplay being around a similar time, because you might have a little bit extra in timing by having that fourth action of hiring, but being able to collect things quicker means that the gameplay's around the same.
So if your strategy in Red Cathedral is to build as many towers as quickly as possible, this black dice is going to get you those resources even quicker and maximise your speed at constructing that beautiful tower. Now for me, the best addition to Red Cathedral by using this Contractors expansion is the Grand Duchy Moscow board. Now, this adds a lot of complexity for people who are used to playing Red Cathedral, because suddenly you have something else to think about. Using your contractor tokens, you can start placing people on the board, which initially gets you a bonus, which you then use to activate the black dice. Also, where you go on the board will dictate which bonus you get, and there's a set collection element that then comes into play there. But more excitingly, if you've got certain people in certain areas of Moscow, you'll notice above each of the towers on the Red Cathedral is the same location. When that tower is completed, the amount of levels you've completed is times by the amount of workers you've placed in the same location on the Moscow board, which gives you the opportunity of sneaking in and stealing the most points from a cathedral tower, which I think is the best part of Red Cathedral. Say someone's done 3 sections of the tower and you've only done 2, but they've put no workers out on the place that relates to this tower, and you put 3. Well, they get points at the end of the game. They're not going to get any points immediately. You're going to get 6.
Yeah, it's quite a puzzle, because the more people in a place, the more you have to pay in your permits and things in order to get there. So you might want to maximise one town, but you might not have enough permits to get there. And also it might be another location that has the item that you need to do your set collecting with the black die. And so it's quite an interesting decision space in terms of what's best for you to do at what point. Do you maximise getting the points as soon as the tower's completed, or are you focusing on points from elsewhere?
Now, if you want to be really crafty and you're keeping an eye on your opponent, you can see they put a load of people in a specific part of Moscow, but you own a dome of that tower. If you don't complete it, they're never going to get any points. All these new things come into play when you're playing with the Contractors expansion.
Another thing that we think is great about this expansion is that there's 10 new guilds. Now, most of them can actually be used without the Grand Duchy board and then just add variety into the game, which is great. And other ones you need to use in conjunction with that. So one of them that we particularly like is the jeweler. I mean, who doesn't want extra gems in this game? They allow you to create that extra gem, which actually is a wild resource. So if you're really struggling to get something, then you can just use these lovely little gems to help you along your way.
Now, one of the contractors I really like is the foreman. Now, he's really good for kind of take that elements, because you can manipulate where he goes on the Red Cathedral as it's being constructed. And if you can get him to go to places you've already completed your sections, you'll get a lot more points. However, if there's people there who haven't done their work, haven't done their duty to build in their grand cathedral, they're losing points. So as long as you can keep him moving around, going to spots you want him to, you can really get control of who's getting points where.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. You can only move him a certain number of spaces, and it really does feel like he's surveying the building site and keeping an eye on you. And you can use it to your advantage and gain the points, or a bit more of a take that element, so that's fun.
And another one we really love is the archivist.
He gives you private sort of end game scoring missions to complete. So there's quite a variety that you can shuffle through and see who gets what which game. They can be anything from you return 2 wood to the supply and obtain 2 prestige points at the end of the game. There are others that ask you to return a jewel and a gold to supply, but you get 3 prestige points. It's difficult enough to get the resources that you need, but then you also need these extra things in your supply before the final scoring occurs.
And here's another contractor that really makes you more aware of what your opponents are doing, because you're trying to second guess, maybe they're doing that just because they've got a private mission which is geared around doing that.
Or maybe they're going to chuck a cross on my dome. Who knows?
What's really good about the Contractors expansion is it adds so many extra cards. We once played a game where we only used new contractors, but I think it works best when you mix these in with some of the original ones, so you're still getting those resources, but there's still some wild elements going on the board just to keep you on your toes.
One of the great things about this expansion is how modular it is. You can just take in a few new guilds and stick with the base game and adapt that to the group that you're playing with, and that's fine. Or you can go in and have the full expansion, add in the duchy board and have everything else going along with it. It allows you to really adapt what you're going to choose to play with each time with your playing group. So for example, if you're playing with someone new to the game, you might think, oh, I'll add in jewelers, because that lets them have that wild card element, which might make things a little bit easier for them to begin with. Or if you're with a group who like a bit of take that element, then perhaps the foreman that Julian was talking about earlier might be a nice addition to add to that, and people can get annoyed with each other about their minus points.
And also, if you want to chuck everything in to make it a far more complicated game for people who are used to playing Red Cathedral, you can certainly do that. It doesn't add a great deal of extra time to the game, just a lot more options, a lot more choices. And those crunchy decisions, I think, are what really make the game exciting.
So the last thing that we really enjoyed about this expansion is the components. I feel like they fit seamlessly together with the original base game. For example, the gems from the jeweler are just really in keeping with the other ones that are already in the game. And one thing that we particularly liked was the player boards and how that expansion works with that. So you basically just slide the new one over and it hides everything that you don't need to see from the base game and gives you all the new information that you do need with the workers and those sort of bits and pieces that to work with. So that's, we found, really user friendly and worked really well.
Now I find expansions tend to fall into two camps. You have ones that completely change the base game, almost to the point where it feels like you're playing a different, albeit good, game. And then you have those that just take a great game and amplify it, turn everything up to 11. And I feel that Red Cathedral Contractors expansion really does that. Now my favourite bit of Red Cathedral is when you see the opportunity to sneak in and own more of a tower, therefore getting the most points from it at the end. And what the Contractors does is gives you different opportunities to do a similar thing. In many ways it takes my favourite bit of the base game and just makes that even better, and in so doing makes everything about the whole playing of Red Cathedral brilliant. It has lots of decisions to a fantastic game, yet doesn't make it excessively more complicated, so new people can play without feeling completely alienated. And to be honest, I can't imagine us playing Red Cathedral without the Contractors expansion, even with people who are entirely new to the game.
Yeah, I mean, you played on your second play of the game only. I just sort of added in Contractors and you picked it up really well, so I think it's not difficult. It doesn't add difficulty, it adds decisions, and they're the kind of games that we really enjoy. So we hope you've enjoyed our 5 reasons why you might enjoy playing Red Cathedral with the Contractors expansion. If you have liked this video, we'd love it if you would like or comment or even subscribe to our channel. That would be great.
Now hopefully we've convinced you that maybe Red Cathedral Contractors expansion towers above all the other expansions you can get.